What's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to the final part of today's show, Wednesday, the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. What the heck is the date today? It's the 26th. My Lord. This year's going by fast. I got 2 weddings within the next couple weeks. Shout out to Dan Schalk. Shout out to Mike Costello. Congratulations on your weddings. Look forward to those. Also, there is a lot going on for the next few weeks for me that I will definitely keep you guys posted on, as I always do. Very excited to discuss the next topic inside the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. But first, as you're tuning into the podcast, as you're sitting down listening to the podcast, whether it's Spreaker.com, Facebook.com/Thomas Takeover, the Thomas Take Sports Podcast official Facebook page, or Twitter at Thomas Takeover, follow me, or the Thomas Take Sports Podcast YouTube channel, which you can all subscribe to. Hop on your computer, hop on your laptop, tablet, whatever you're using, and go to www.statementgames.com. Create a profile, create an account, and win prizes for free. At statementgames.com, you do not draft players. This is not a fantasy draft site. This is a statement draft site. I've made a lot of big statements on this show, some of which have come to fruition, some of which have not. But on statementgames.com, you can put your statement making to the test. Draft statements and win prizes if the statements do in fact come true. Give it a look. It's pretty fun. So that being said, let's talk about the big fight that's coming up October 6th. Khabib Nurmagomedov, Conor McGregor, UFC 229. We talked about the press conference. Talked about what I thought of it. I have yet to talk about Conor McGregor's new 6-fight deal inside the UFC. There's fans all around the world thinking that he's going to fight those 6 fights. You are dreaming. Keep dreaming. You are living in a fantasy land. There's no way in hell Conor McGregor fights 6 more fights. No way. I can't even name 6 guys that he would fight. I can't even name 4 guys that he'd fight. I can barely name 3 guys that he would fight. But nonetheless, Conor McGregor is signed for 6 more fights in the UFC. And I want to talk about what I think currently is the UFC's biggest gamble. And there's a lot of layers to this. You guys are going to think I'm a little bit crazy, but hear me out. The UFC's biggest gamble is Conor McGregor in 2018. Now, 2018, you say 2018, it's only 3 months, October, November, December. Right. 2018, Conor McGregor is a massive gamble because he's fighting the toughest opponent that he's ever fought. He's fighting 26-0 Khabib Nurmagomedov. When Conor says Khabib's fought nobody, he's fought cans, he's fought this, he's fought that. It's not really the case, especially as of recently. He's fought some very good fighters. The way he won the title was not ideal. I'm sure even in Khabib's estimation, he would have rather have won it off of Tony Ferguson, but Tony Ferguson messed up that situation, not Khabib. So, we could throw the blame at Tony Ferguson for that, not Khabib. Khabib showed up, fight night, did his job, went home with the belt. No matter who he fought, no matter how, I don't want to say unimpressive, but not appealing, in terms of his stand-up didn't look good. He went the full 5 rounds of the Ally Quinta. Maybe not redeeming. You could say that. Despite all of that, he's 26-0. He's run over practically everyone that he's ever fought. This is the toughest fight of Conor's career heading into this fight. This is tougher than Nate. This is tougher than Chad Mendez. It's tougher than Jose Aldo. This is a tough one. And you look around the landscape of the UFC, I've talked about this a bunch of times, but there is no star in the UFC bigger than Conor McGregor. Not GSP, not John Jones. Ronda Rousey's gone. There is no star bigger than Conor. And if he were to fight this fight and lose, not only do I feel this does a huge damage to his legacy, more on that in just a moment, but I feel as if a beltless Conor McGregor is a little bit tougher to promote. And anytime you have a fighter with a belt, it makes it easier to promote. If you have a fighter without a belt, despite the fact that he's Conor McGregor, it does change things. The public eye, people would see him as not a champion. They would see him as what is referred to commonly in boxing and combat sports as a gatekeeper. A guy that fights big fights, a guy that fights big money fights, but other than that, he's not sniffing at a title shot. So I took the Thomas Take Sports Podcast Facebook page to talk about this very topic, and I posted last night. I hopped on the podcast talking about the biggest fight of Conor McGregor's career, which takes place on October 6th versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. If Conor were to lose, this would most definitely damage his fighting legacy. Two-weight champion or not, those were two belts he never defended. Coming back for a title fight and losing a beltless Conor McGregor is much tougher to promote. Of course, no matter what, he is the biggest star in the history of the sport. But you mean to tell me it would be easy to promote coming off of 3 losses in his last 5 fights, if we include the man with the loss? If we don't, it's 2 in his last 4 fights. I don't think so. I don't think it would be easy to promote him at all. McGregor would then move from a championship fighter to a true gatekeeper, which is fine, but I think people need to be more aware that this is the toughest fight of his career. This is the biggest fight of his career, and it isn't even close. Post the Maymack fight, more eyes are on McGregor now more than ever. And with that, if 2.5, which it's trending towards that, 2.5 million people watch this pay-per-view, it is literally the highest grossing UFC pay-per-view ever. That means the largest amount of eyeballs could be witnessing Conor McGregor knock out Khabib and beat him, or it could be the highest amount of eyeballs watching Conor McGregor lose. And if that does happen, which it very well could, this is a 50-50 fight, folks. It very well could happen. That is bad for Conor McGregor. That is bad for the UFC. We throw the business part into it too. His logo for his whiskey company is going to be inside the octagon. So anytime he fights, if he's coming off a loss, that's a tough sell. If he's without a belt, he can be in a main event, obviously, because he's a big name. But that's a tough sell. I think worst case scenario, Conor McGregor does lose. They do a rematch immediately because he's just that guy. He's just that noteworthy. He's got the name. He's got the fact that he is the biggest draw in the sport has led him to get opportunities that he didn't necessarily deserve through fighting, but ones that he deserved through selling. And everybody can agree with that. There's no disagreeing with that. Automatic title shot at 155 when he had yet to defend his 145-pound belt. He got 2 separate title shots at that weight class, one of which never came to fruition due to the fact that RDA had a foot injury. He fights Nate, loses, gets a rematch with Nate, then gets a title shot again in that weight class. It's almost like it was like, oh, back to reality, back to where we left off. Let's give him a title shot at 155 again versus Eddie, all while he was the featherweight champ, all while he didn't defend that title. Fights Eddie Alvarez, starches him, doesn't defend the title for almost 2 years. fights Floyd Mayweather, almost 1 year actually, fights Floyd Mayweather, gets that opportunity, all while still being the lightweight champion. Almost 2 years actually. Gets the belt stripped of him in February. Or was it April? February, April, where Habib fought Al. And now here we are. That doesn't happen with any other fighter, folks. It doesn't happen with any other fighter. So, to say that Conor is a guy that needs to win this fight, it's a massive, massive understatement. The pressure is on him more than it's on Habib. If Habib loses this fight, he could look at that reality of McGregor being the biggest draw and the money fights and all that. It could be a case of, well, I'll get my belt back. I'll get my belt back at some point. Which he very well could. If it's his first loss in his record, and he's beaten the majority of the lightweights in the division, we could definitely see him get that belt back. I'm just speculating here. Sometimes people don't like looking into the future. I do, because speculation is what keeps the podcast, talks going. Ask any podcast host. Speculation is like gasoline on a fire. It just ignites the fire. Speculation. So there you have it. The biggest gamble. The UFC is putting all their eggs into the Conor McGregor basket, as they should, and I'm not saying it's a bad choice for them to do that. But what I am saying, I'm wondering what will happen to the UFC if McGregor loses. What happens then? Does he get a rematch? Does he fight a money fight versus GSP? Who knows? But I'm definitely interested in finding out on October 6th. Take care, everybody. That was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast Wednesday morning show. Hope you enjoyed it. Check out www.statementgames.com. You don't draft players, you draft statements. Take care, everybody.